cutting the chicken for saute, our intention is to cook it on the bone. Alright, we're going to cook it on the bone because you get more flavour into it. Therefore, we're going to get 4 portions from a chicken, and we need to give each customer a piece of white meat and a piece of dark meat. And very important that we actually give each customer an equal amount of meat, because it's no good having a large portion for one person, a small portion for another. Okay, so the way to do this is to actually, first of all, as usual, remove the wishbone. So we're going to scrape down the side until it can expose and get the knife behind it, and I'm just going to loosen that out from the bottom. Okay, I'm going to scrape down the other side. A bit difficult doing it this way round, but I'm doing it this way so that you can see it. You can get the knife in behind the bone again into the actual carcass and out, and this one snapped, but that's not a problem. Work my finger to the top, find the flat piece of bone at the top, and twist it and take it out. So there's our wishbone out. Okay, in here I'm just going to put a little pile for rubbish. The fat's no good for anything. The bones are good for stock, so I'm going to use them for that. Okay. Other things then, we're going to check the cavity, make sure that there's no bits of lung or anything inside. There's not, but there are lots of really fatty bits in here. Okay, so as I'm cutting through here, I'm going to remove some of these fatty bits. Is the fat any good in the stock? No, so we're going to get rid of that. And now we're about to actually start prepping the chicken. First thing I want to do is remove the legs. Okay, so if I remove the legs, and you've seen it done before and you've all done it, as you remove the legs, if you cut straight through the skin there, what we're going to have is an area of the breast that's not covered in the skin. And because we want to cook this on the bone and we want to render the fat out of the skin, we want the skin completely covering it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pinch a little bit of excess skin off of the leg before I actually cut through there, okay, to do it. As I'm coming down through here, I'm going to loosen off the skin down the side of the leg. I'm going to put my finger on where the joint goes into there, and I'm going to pop that bone out. Okay, what we've actually got on here, what's this bit called?
Oyster.
The oyster. Excellent. That's an excellent piece of meat. So I'm going to cut down to it. Okay, and you can cut around it with a knife, but easy enough is actually to just put your thumb in there and press around, and that's going to get that all still attached to the leg meat. And as I come across, I can now follow the carcass along, and I've removed the leg. Alright? What we've got to do a bit later is French trim this leg. So you can either do it now, or if you choose to, you can French trim it while it's still on the bone. Okay, I'm going to show you both ways. So using it on the bone, sometimes it's advantageous because you've got gravity on your side. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to work to where the skin finishes. Okay, I'm going to cut all the way in and cut around, okay, and work my way. And as I actually cut through that little bit, I can pop off the end of the leg, and that's a nice and clean piece of bone that we're going to be able to trim up later. It's just as easy to do it off the bone, so I'm going to get a good grip. You can see where the actual muscle finishes, and once again I'm going to cut around and take off the end of that leg. No real rhyme or reason to it as what is easier, it's down to personal preference. Okay, so we've got the legs there where the end's already French trimmed. Remembering what I said before, when you come to take the skin off the leg, I'm going to nick a little bit of that skin to make sure that the breast's completely covered. Loosen that down, pop that bone out again, you can see it coming through. Whereabouts is the oyster? Okay, can you see it? Where the bump is, just there. Okay, so I'm going to cut into it with the knife. This time I'm just going to cut it around just to show you that you can do both things and follow the carcass down. So we've removed the legs. Okay, so what we need to do is get 4 pieces of brown meat and 4 pieces of white meat. Okay, the brown meat is obviously going to come from the legs, so we're going to separate it here. Lots of different ways that you can separate it. Some chefs will move it around and find the joint and cut through. No right or wrong, so long as you cut through the joint. Whenever you're cutting chickens for saute, we never want to cut through bone. We always go through cartilage in between bone, and the best way to do that, from my point of view, is to find that natural fat line that goes through there, line the knife up with it. I'm going to move the knife 2 centimetres to the drumstick side and just cut through, and every single time you'll get through there. So, I'll say centimetres, 2 millimetres. Excellent. So line it up 2 mil to that side and cut through. So now that's my French trimmed drumsticks. All I'm going to do to tidy them up, okay, there's a little bit of cartilage in there that I can trim off. It's better trimmed off than in your customer's mouth as they're trying to eat it. Okay, So just to tidy it up, those little excess bits of cartilage can go, all good for stock. Okay. And the other thing I'm going to do, just to trim up the end of the drumstick, I'm going to use my chef's knife, and where we've got the pink bit at the end of the bone where the stem cells are, I'm going to put the heel of the knife on there, put some weight on the front, and just tidy that up. That's just going to trim that up and make it look that little bit better on both of those. Okay, so again, usable for stock. With my thighs, once again, I just want to get rid of this excess cartilage, so I'm just going to trim off that from both ends, not wasting any meat, but it's just one less little bit of bone that your customers are going to get if we do that. See how I'm using the heel of the knife where I've got more control. Okay, put my hand on the front and cut down, and that just removes that. Okay, tidy these bits up. So now what we've got are 2 thighs and 2 drumsticks, which is our 4 pieces of brown meat. What we now need to get are 4 pieces of white meat. We've got our breasts that are completely covered. If I just dip through, your breast would probably look something like that, that's not completely covered in fat. I'd sooner have too much on it and have to cut it off than actually not have it on there in the first place. Right, so what I'm going to do now is trim up the actual wing bones, and we're going to do that in the same fashion. What we've got on here is this little flap of skin from the wing, which I'm going to go through and loosen out. And because for cooking it for saute, I want this muscle left on here, unlike when you're French trimming it and scraping up the whole of the bone, I'm only going to scrape up the end of the bone. So again, like we did with the drumstick, we're going to get to where the thick piece of meat finishes, and we're going to go all the way around. And this one I do prefer to do while it's actually still attached to the whole bird, because you've got gravity on your side, as we said. Okay, I'm going to be able to pop that off of there, and we're going to tidy that up a bit later. The wings can still be used for stock. Once again, removing through that little trim, coming to the end of the muscle, because we don't want to waste any of this. Going to cut all the way around, and I'm going to be able to pop that wing off. Alright, we're going to French trim that up a little bit later when it's off the bone. Very, very important now to get 4 portions of meat out of here, okay, is that we're going to line the knife up with the breastbone. Okay, did I say we cut through bone when we cut through? Where do we cut through?
Tendons.
Tendons, cartilage, joints. Okay, so what I've got to do, the end of this bone here comes into the bottom of there, and I want to line this knife up, and I've got to work out, it's more or less halfway, but possibly a little bit further towards the wing. Okay, so roughly halfway, but I can line it up. I can almost give myself a mark on the skin. I'm going to slice down through the meat, okay, and I should be able to go straight through that piece of cartilage to get off what we call our little wing joint. Okay, 2 ways of trimming that end up, I'm going to show you in a second. Once again, lining up with that, working out where that wing joint's going to come through. Okay, and I'm going to slice down, okay, around the bone. There's my little bit of cartilage, make sure you go through it. Okay, so I'm getting even sized pieces off of that. Okay, wonderful. So the way to trim this up, 2 ways you can trim it up. You can do the same as we did on the end of the leg bones if you prefer. Okay, you can put the heel of the knife on that end bit and actually crunch down so that you get a nice tidy end of bone. Okay, the other way of doing it is if you've got the actual supreme piece upside down, you'll notice that this bone has a bit of an arch in it. You would never ever bang it in the middle of there because you'd splinter the bone. If you turn it that way up so that both pieces are on and actually give it a good tap, you'll always get a nice clean cut. Okay, if you've got sensitive hands, you could always tap the knife with the back of the knife with a steel or something rather than hitting it with your hand, especially if you've got hundreds to do, because you'll bruise your hand quite badly. So we've got 2 pieces of white meat, we've just got to get 2 more off of this, and what we're actually going to do is cut down through the cartilage, through there, just below the meat. I didn't cut into the breast at all, okay, you'll notice that, and as I come down here, I can just go through and remove this piece of carcass, which I'm going to trim all the excess fat off, okay, because we're going to use this cartilage, this carcass in our stock for making it. So if you leave all this skin and fat on, you're making more work for yourself when you make your stock, because it's all going to be fatty and horrible. Okay, so I'm just going to cut that into a couple of little pieces, again using the heel of the knife and my body weight. Okay, and I'm getting a nice amount here now that I can use for stock for that, as well as my little bit of wastage. Last thing, okay, really, when we come in to do this, is we've got these two little ends of bone. It doesn't matter if you leave them on, but just nicer for your customer if we've trimmed these little bits off. Okay, it's less to go on their plate. Now, people struggle cutting this bit in half. Okay, we want 2 equal sized pieces. Right, and if we've got to get 2 equal sized pieces, and I'm going to look here, and if I cut it straight in the middle, are they going to be equal sized pieces? Why not, Matt?
Because the top end's like thicker, but the bottom end's much longer.
Absolutely, so if I cut it there, the easiest way to work it out, rather than guessing from looking above, I always turn it onto its side. Okay, because you can mark it with the knife. So if I cut it in the middle, it's obvious that that's going to be a lot smaller than that, but actually, if I move the knife around, I can do it so that I can more or less judge where it's going to be equal sized pieces of meat. Put a notch, carefully cut through the skin, because I don't want to lose all the skin as I'm cutting it. The breastbone is quite pliable, so we can go through that, and then just using the heel of the knife again, just gone through that last little bit. Okay, so what I've actually ended up with here are 4 pieces of white meat and 4 pieces of dark meat that are always the same sort of size. And of course we're going to get 4 portions out of it, and we want to give each customer a piece of dark and a piece of white. Okay, and the way to do it, the traditional way to do it, is to serve the leg with the breast and the thigh with the wing per portion. Job done.